What are the biggest mistakes people make when they're writing their resume? What are some of the things you could do to add to your resume to make it stand out amidst all the others that are on some manager's desk? We're going to talk about all that today on Creating the Future. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to this edition of Creating the Future. Super excited to come to you today with my good friend, Pastor Tina Blount from Arise Church. But we're going to take the pastor hat off today and actually look at the business side today because we're in a unique moment. It's the summertime. If you're following with us, it's July 2025. Maybe some of this might even go into August because we're going to do a multi-part series. And a lot of times during the summer, people are moving. They're looking for their next job, maybe a new career. Maybe the kids are graduating from high school, and for the first time, a parent is thinking about what I could do with the rest of my life now that I don't have to, tend to the kids quite so often. And so we wanted to do a special little series that's going to be in 4 parts on how to create your resume, how to do how to interview really well, how to find your dream job, and then the fourth part will be on your working genius. What is it that you do so very well? And to have this conversation, the best person I know, really an expert on all of these subjects, not because she's Pastor Tina, but because she came from the business world, is Pastor Tina from Arise Church, that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And so, first of all, Pastor Tina, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Pastor Brent, Dr. Brent. I'm so excited to be here. These are some of my favorite topics on planet Earth to talk about. And so I can't wait to get into it.
I love it. All right, so just back up real fast because, again, most people know you as Pastor Tina. I'm going to start trying to take that title off for a second and just call you Tina because before you were Pastor Tina, you were just Tina. And you have a whole career where you worked in a field, helping people find their next job and in that kind of world. Just tell us how did you become an expert on this subject?
Well, first of all, I don't think I'm an expert in all. I think I'm a student, and I think I'm a student who never ever stops studying these topics. And I think when you are hungry to learn, you gain knowledge. And
Yeah.
so I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I would say that I'm pretty confident that what I bring to the table can legitimately help somebody. My very first real job, like throw the McDonald's and all that kind of stuff away. My very first real job was working at a staffing agency. And this was back before there was computers. Boy, am I dating myself, right? Like we had flip charts, we had to study people and jobs. And so I started there, and that started me on this career of moving from staffing agency to high tech recruiting companies to the corporate world of running large talent acquisition departments and large financial institutions. But probably the biggest impact in my career is that when I left corporate America, I went to work for a company called Next Job. That was legitimately the name of it, Next Job. And they helped people who were unexpectedly laid off do everything from writing their resume to interviewing to figuring out, like, how do I see the forest for the trees, because like my forest just got burned down. Like how do we go from there? And so all of those things together just accumulated in my knowledge bucket to what was already this, like, campfire already of passion.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know every time we hire somebody at Arise and we get resumes in, you are so funny because you'll look at them and you're like, I hate this resume. They didn't write this well. And so we're going to dive into that today, how to create an effective resume. And I know we are going to lean on your expertise. And you wrote a little ebook. We'll come back to that at the end. But you wrote a little ebook called Next Level Resumes, which is a great little step-by-step guide in writing. But in your book, you open it with the phrase, your resume is the key. All right, so let's talk
Mm-hmm.
about that. What do you mean by that? What is that? Why is it the key? What do you mean by that?
Well, think about it. If you're going to walk through a door, you really have two options, right? Well, three options. It's either left wide open for you, right? So you know somebody, I know somebody, you have a conversation and think, you're a good fit, come on board with my company. It's
Hmm.
beautiful when that happens, but that's not usually how it happens. You can kick down a door, and that can be an option. Usually not very effective. Usually, law enforcement gets called. So we don't want to do that. But I think if you do what most people do, you use a key.
Mm,
And a resume, that's really all it is. It's
mm,
the key that opens the door to a
mm.
conversation with a potential employer.
Right.
So you have to have a resume that is an effective key, because otherwise I can be putting it in a lock all day long. I can know that I'm supposed to be inside of that organization, but without a great resume, you're not even going to get the opportunity.
That's so good. So good. I'm curious about this too, even maybe prior or alongside the resume. I don't know how you would describe this, but you've mentioned to me several times about how important a LinkedIn profile is. And I'm not looking for a job, praise God. But a lot of people are. And how does LinkedIn maybe work with the resume or help open doors for a potential employer as well?
Yeah, they really go hand in hand. I mean, in the
Yeah.
world that we're living in today, LinkedIn is a way for you to communicate at the highest level what someone
Mm,
might see on your actual resume. It also shows what groups you're involved in.
mm,
And you should join groups if you have a LinkedIn profile. You know, for us, it might be pastoring or strategic leadership or something of that nature, because it shows people in the social media world what you're passionate about, who you're connected to. And
mm.
so they should really complement each other. Great
Right.
example. Last night, I coached a teacher who is moving from the great state of Florida to another state. And her resume is coming together nicely. But I just happened to go peek at her LinkedIn profile, and she
Mm.
has not updated it in a decade. So you don't want that lack of continuity. You want them
Right.
to really mirror each other. Here's the other thing: most of the time, you're not going to put a picture on your resume.
Mm,
Some positions you might, but you will on a LinkedIn profile. So
mm,
it's an employer's ability to actually see what you look like. Like,
mhm.
do you have alien ears? Like, are you professionally dressed? Like, let's
Right.
look at that. And that can be a really good help open that door as well.
Okay. So LinkedIn matters as well.
It matters.
Now, in your little ebook, you write it this way. You say that a manager, a person who's hiring, is probably only going to glance at the resume, maybe 20 seconds or something like that. So, what should be the things that stand out? So, when it's going across their desk and they see in 20 seconds, who is this person? Talk to us about that. What should stand out?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and a couple of things. People are going to feel the sting of 20 seconds. Are you kidding me? I spent like 3 days on this thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's heartbreaking, but that's the sad reality.
Hmm.
When an employer looks at a resume, they're really looking at it either consciously or subconsciously through three lenses. They need it to be visually appealing. They need it to look like there's healthy white space, there's bullets. I'm not going to have to read a paragraph,
Yeah.
right? So we want to see it visually appealing. You want it to look like you made some effort on it. The
Hmm.
second thing they're looking for is they want it to be structurally sound. They want to make sure that they can find what they're looking for really quickly. They don't want to have to
Hmm.
read the whole thing because they're not going to. And then the third component is that it needs to be keyword optimized. The employer, because they wrote the job description and they know what they're looking for, are literally scanning it, looking for the keywords that align with their position in their organization. So it needs to have in 20 seconds. That's 7 seconds faster than a NASCAR pit stop. Like it needs to have those three qualities.
That's interesting. And you mentioned there like the colors or the way it looks. I'm a creative, and you and I have had these conversations before looking at resumes. How creative should someone be? Like I like having the image on the resume, but I recognize I'm a church and it's a little different for me than other people. And I like colors, I like creativity inside the resume. And is that a matter of who, knowing your audience kind of thing, knowing what you're applying for and what they're looking for? Or is there a certain level of creativity that you recommend? How would you answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. It depends on the type of position you're applying for. If you're
Mm,
a creative, your
mhm.
resume should show some level of
Right,
creativity.
right.
If you are applying for a pastoral position where we hire the pastor, but we receive the whole family, right? It's a great idea to have a picture of your family. The
Hmm.
challenge comes in is if you're applying for an organization that uses an applicant tracking system known as an ATS. Any kind of creativity will not parse over. And
Mm,
so what will happen is that pretty little graph that you had in there it won't happen at all.
Mm,
Or it'll merge it in with other words. And so they can't read it.
mm,
For a short season, I'd say for about a year, because I wanted to keep my skills really fresh. A little over a year ago, I went to work for Indeed.com part-time basis. And I did it to review resumes simply so that I could stay really fresh. And I saw more resumes that were parsed over that you simply couldn't read. So know your audience. The larger the company, the greater the likelihood they're going to use an applicant tracking system.
mm.
So you want clean and classic. Clean and classic always wins the day. Then when you go in and you're meeting with someone, you've turned the key, you're having an in-person conversation, then bring them that really creative resume.
Okay. Okay. So you could actually have two resumes almost.
I think every person should have multiple resumes. In
Okay.
fact, I'm a huge believer that every person should have a master resume, and it's going to be long and it's going to include lots of things that you've done over the course of your career. But then you are going to customize it for every single position that you're applying to, because that's where those keywords come in.
Wow, that's really good. So even if you have a master resume, you really want to customize that resume with the keywords, the thoughts that you know the employer is looking for whenever you give that resume to them, which is really just tweaking what you already have and shouldn't seem insurmountable to anyone. All right, so in your little ebook, you got a why before how. Now that's a bold claim that you're making there,
Mm.
because you're really saying that people start discovering themselves as they write their resume. I think that's a very interesting idea. So talk about that a little more and how that transformation takes place within a person as they write their resume.
Yeah, absolutely. So why before how, who before do? So many of us, we just do things. We
Hmm.
work hard, we do our jobs, but we're not always introspective about, okay, what am I really good at? What do I really have to offer? What do I bring to the table? And so the power of writing a resume is that it brings you clarity
Mm,
on, this is what I'm really good at.
mm,
This is what I'm passionate about. These were my past wins. These are the kinds of things that I would like to do again. I worked with someone not all that long ago who was in an administrative assistant role. They were applying for a HR role, so a position in human resources, but they weren't entirely sure that that's really the direction they wanted to go in, or if they were even good at it.
mm,
Well, through the coaching process, as I began to ask questions about, great, tell me about your last win in the last 90 days. Tell me about what you think about the most when you think about your job. Tell me about like your struggles. What we discovered is that this person was an HR person all day long. And
mm,
when we put it on paper, now not only do they know who they are, they know what they bring to the table.
mm.
And that gives you so much confidence
Yeah.
when you're walking into an interview.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good because so oftentimes we find ourselves in a position that we think we want, get there only to find out we don't want it, which teaser alert, I think we'll talk about in a further podcast in a couple weeks. So make sure that you are back for that. All right. So obviously people have their competencies. That's what we're putting on a resume. Maybe that's the main thing. You have this certain degree or skill set or certification, what have you, this competency. But nowadays, I think character matters maybe more than competency. Maybe it always has, but certainly in the world we live in right now, character really matters. How do you put your character out there? How do you show people in a resume format that you are a person who's going to show up on time and work hard and not steal from the company and
Mm.
stay there for a while? How do you show that in your resume?
Well, I think you do a couple of different things. You, first of all, take a look at what the employer says they're looking for
Mm,
in a job description. An employer's character qualities are really smattered all over it. So
mm,
I'm a huge believer, if you get out an old fashioned highlighter and you highlight all of the ones that are true of you, by all means, don't put something out there if that's not authentic
right,
to you.
right.
But if it's authentic to you, put it in. And then you weave it in through power statements.
Mm,
In your headline statement on a resume, think old fashioned newspaper, extra extra, right? I'm going to say that I'm not just an enthusiastic communicator and coach. I'm going to say that I am a results driven communicator and coach. I'm going to weave those little words in there as I'm expressing what my competency is, I'm going to talk about not only what I do, but the way I do it. And
Mm,
that's where that character is going to come in. I'm
mm,
also a huge fan of what's called a testimonial on a resume.
mhm.
Just one or two little sentences from somebody else spoken about you that affirms what you have already told them, and you coach them on the kinds of words that you would like them to use.
Right.
They can say what they want, but you coach them accordingly. And so there are these little drips throughout a resume that weave in who you are, not just what you do.
That's so good. That's so good. I think even as you're talking about that, how we have had people that apply for a rise, and when they send their resume in, it's clear that they've read our core values and beliefs on our website, and
Yeah.
they will weave together those, which if nothing else shows that they're a person who's trying and really hungry for this job. They're not just sending in a resume, and maybe that's a little bit of what you're talking about. Is there any ways that you can mix in any stories or accomplishments into your resume? And obviously, I would assume, and you're the expert, but you want the resume to be very short, one page, and maybe you can answer that too, but you want it short, so you can't write a book. But how do you work in stories or accomplishments?
So let me first of all kill the theory that a resume should be one page.
Okay.
If you're a college student, your resume should be one page because you
Right.
probably have not done any more than that
Yeah.
at that point. But if you've been working a decade or longer and all the employer really wants to see is the last 10 to 15 years, any more than that, and you're just telling them how old you are, right? So you want to be able to just show them that 10 to 15
Right.
years. It's completely okay for your resume to be 3 pages.
Hmm.
That whole one page philosophy came out in the late 1960s, early 1970s. It
Hmm.
died years ago.
Hmm.
I tell people, do not worry about that. 3 pages is great. If you've got 4 pages, you and I should have some conversation because you're probably putting more on there than you need to for this position. Let's
Right.
streamline that just a little bit. But that's one of the other things that's really changed is that, you know, even 10 to 15 years ago, resumes look like grocery lists,
Hmm.
right? Milk, bread, eggs.
Hmm.
I type 90 minutes words per minute. I can create spreadsheets like a boss. I can preach the paint off the walls, like
Yeah.
whatever that is, right? But now what we want to do is we want to show people not only what you did, a little bit about how you did it, and most definitely what the outcome is.
Hmm.
So, any way that you can quantify what goes on your resume, any way you can qualify what goes on your resume is absolutely huge. You want to tell them a story. The trick is it's got to be to the point, it's got to be direct, but you have those elements in there. So think about, if nothing else, what's the whoa factor, right? So
Yeah.
what did I do? What was the outcome?
That's so good. Practically speaking, I'm just curious. So it could be 3 pages ideally, or could be 3 pages. Is that front and back or all front? Is it written on resume paper? I know a lot of times nowadays it's all going to be on PDF or some way emailed, but what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So you want it to always be one page, never front and back, ever.
Okay.
Front and back. That's almost like a faux pas. So one page only.
Right.
I would say you are 1 inch all the way around. Employers like to get out their fancy little red pen and write some thoughts as they go around it.
Mhm.
If you have a lot of words, squeeze it to a 0.75 that goes all the way around it. With the amount of experience you have and I have bringing to the table, I have a 3 page resume. I have a 7 page master resume, and I pull from it as I need to put it on my actual resume. Not that I'm looking for a job or anything, but if I was, that's exactly what I would do. And
Mhm.
so I'm not sure if I answered that entirely the way you just asked it, but 3 pages, one sided only. Most of the time, you're going to be submitting it electronically. But
Yeah.
I am a huge believer of walking into an interview with a printed copy. Put it on
Mhm.
resume paper, not cardstock. There is a difference between single
Mhm.
white paper
Mhm.
and cardstock, and it's resume paper. I'm also a huge believer in using a light gray, a light blue. Like if I look at my desk right now, it's littered with white paper. So I want something that's going to stand out ever so subtly. But I have seen people scent their paper. Don't do that. That's weird. Like don't be extreme here, but just professional next level.
Right. That's funny. I'm going to put scent on their paper. That's going to be interesting.
I have seen it done.
Here's a funny one that you may want to mention too, email addresses and other little things like that in the
Ugh.
resume. I remember somebody applying one time many years ago to be a church secretary, and their email, and they did not attend the church, so we did not know them at all, but their email was like, I don't know, like sexy mama 69 at Yahoo or whatever, that sort of thing. And you're like, whoa, I'm not sure this person is ideally the candidate, to be a church secretary. So I would assume you think a email should be generic with just their name or something simple like that too.
Something simple. Like here's the thing. If it would make your mama blush, you probably don't want that to
Right,
be your
right,
email address. So
right.
just keep it simple. You don't have to go create a new one unless your other one makes people blush. And then which
Yeah,
case, please go do that.
yeah. Okay, so sort of along those type of lines, but you've been doing this for a long time now,
Mm.
what are some of the things that you've seen change over the time with resumes and what makes them stand out currently? And again, we're in 2025. LinkedIn is a thing now. Maybe in 5 years it's not. But what are the things that make it stand out? And what are the things that might be old like that just don't work anymore?
Yeah, I some of them I think we've already talked about. I think we want to move away from anything that looks like a grocery shopping
Okay,
list.
gotcha.
I think that just goes completely away. You have to sell your accomplishments. I
Hmm.
remind people all the time that a resume is written about them, but it's not written for them.
Mm,
It's written for the employer. And
that's
so
good.
that has really been a shift, right? It used to be first person. I am this is what I do. It's not written in first person any longer. It's written for them. Think of it like you're the product, you're a commodity, you're a valuable commodity, and so you're writing it like you would a marketing document,
Mm,
and so you're gonna sell yourself.
hmm.
You need to sell yourself. I find especially Christians, but certainly this goes across the board. This is that moment people try to be humble. This is not the moment to be humble.
Right.
This is the moment you've got to tell people, this is what I bring to the table. And this is how I can make your organization, your department shine in whatever role that is. I think that's the big shift. It used to
Yeah.
be about us. Now it's really for them.
Right, right. I've heard people say that oftentimes narcissists are the ones that you hire because they don't have an issue with the humility side at all. They just put it all out there and you hire them because they look great. They're great in interviews. They're great writing their resume, but then you get them there and find they're a little egotistical into themselves. But when you're writing your resume, we probably need a little bit of that narcissistic personality that all of us have to some degree to just come out so that we can share who we are.
Well, we got to get in the door, right? We
Right.
we have to get in the door. In the door, hopefully you're showing a little bit of humility.
Mhm.
You're
Right,
balancing that a
right,
little bit.
right.
But to get in the door, you got to tell them who you are. With that being said, someone just asked me recently, is it okay to put the word expert on your resume?
Mm,
I said, well, if you have a PhD in whatever that is and practical application, you can probably put expert on your resume. But if you're just a student of it, like I am, like I'm never going to say that I'm an expert resume writer. I'm going to say I'm a resume writer that gets results. I have the
mm.
proven ability to get people results, opening doors. So you can be boisterous. You can highlight what you bring to the table in a way that still brings a little bit of humility.
That's so good. And a great moment to switch over and say, all right, so you do resume writing. Is this something that you are interested in doing for people still today? I know you're busy, you don't always have time, but maybe even whether it's yourself or hiring somebody, even if it's not you, who knows who could be in another country listening to this podcast or watching online. How important is it to get a second pair of eyes on a resume?
Okay, so I think a second pair of eyes are huge. Like
Mhm.
it is absolutely critical. You said it earlier. How many times do I look at a resume and I just groan? I'm just, this is killing me.
Right.
And it kills me not just because I think it's not pretty or productive. It kills me for that person because it's not showcasing them,
Hmm.
right? I want to see that person showcase themselves. So do I do resume writing? Very, very few. I do a lot of resume coaching,
Mm.
meaning that I will look at their resume and I will give them recommendations on what they need to change, what they need to fix. I'll give them examples on what that looks like. But I don't have the margin to do a whole lot of resume
Right.
writing. But coaching, I'm happy to do that all day.
Okay. What role does AI play in this in the modern world where it can, it's never perfect, but do you think it's helpful in writing your resume?
I think it is a huge time saver.
Mm.
But I think you have to, only you know you. And unless you use AI on a regular basis, it's going to write about you in a voice that's not yours. And
Mm.
it's not going to take an interviewer but 30 seconds to realize you didn't write this thing.
Hmm.
So you either have to work with AI enough that it recognizes your voice, it recognizes the way you would talk about yourself, or you use it to be able to communicate your strengths, your character, your competency. But then you have someone look at it who can say, okay, would you use that word? Is that even a phrase that you would use? And then make it more conversational in a way that it actually sounds like you. But I'm a huge believer of it. I recently, very, very recently, someone sent me their resume, and their notable accomplishment section was like a whole page in and of it to
Mm.
itself. It was something that even as a recruiter back in the day, I would never read it. Like I
Mm.
just would never read it. And so I literally cut it and pasted it and put it into AI and said, make these, whoa, I need to know what they did and I need to know what the action was and shorten it for me.
Mm.
So then it gave me that tool. And then they and I coached on it together and said, all right, now let's make these sound like you. So it
Yeah.
can be a huge saver. The other thing it can do, and this is really good, you can put a job description inside of AI, like cut and paste the link in, then put your resume in and come back and say, how keyword optimized is my resume to this job description?
Mm.
I just did this for someone recently and it came back 24% optimized. I wanted this person to be at 40% optimized. So I then asked AI, what are we missing? The funny thing was, it was just terminology. So,
Hmm.
for example, if I call myself a recruiter, but the job description is looking for someone in talent acquisition, it's not going to be a match.
Mm.
Does it mean the same thing? It does, but it's not going to be the match. If I call myself a communicator, but you're looking for a preacher, it's not going to be a match. But AI can highlight all of that for you so that you can go in and make adjustments.
That's so good. That's so good. We never asked this, but is a cover letter appropriate today?
It's really going out of style.
Mm.
It depends on the organization. It depends typically on the age of the interviewer. The younger they are, the less they want it. Why? Because they're going to go to LinkedIn.
Mm.
LinkedIn's almost going to be your cover letter,
Gotcha.
but you don't always know that. And so I think it doesn't hurt. In the same way that a handwritten note never goes out of style, if somebody doesn't want to read it, they'll toss it. But
Hmm.
if they wanted to read it and you didn't have it, it can hurt you even before you get started.
That's so good. That's so good. Okay, last question, and then we're going to segue into next week's podcast and kind of give a
Okay.
bumper for that. Maybe this question does a little bit because now we're going to switch into interviewing. What do you say to somebody who has written their resume? They feel confident in that, but they're still struggling with confidence going into the interview. What do you say to them?
Well, I would tell them number one to read your resume.
Hmm.
That's the very first thing I would tell them to do
Wow.
is read your resume. Because if we don't believe what we're putting on paper,
Hmm.
then we are never going to feel good about walking in there and communicating it.
Hmm.
Obviously, you want to believe what God says about you, who He says you are, but then read what you put on paper. That's why I ask people. My favorite moment in the resume coaching process is when someone picks it up and they go, "That's me."
Wow.
That's me.
Yeah.
Yes, because it's this beautiful aha moment. So read it, internalize it, um, ponder it, think about the wins that you've had on it. Are you still maybe going to feel a little bit of nerves and jitters? Maybe, right? But you're walking in there with a whole level of confidence because you know who you are when you sit down in their chair.
So good. So good. Tina, you are amazing, and I'm so thankful that you are willing to jump on the podcast with us today and for the next 3 weeks as well. But if somebody wants to follow you or get the ebook, is that possible that I've been talking about? If they want to follow, I know you do a lot of business consulting and stuff as well. How do they get a hold of
Mhm.
you?
Absolutely. Easiest thing to do is go to my website, tinablount.com. That's BLOUNT.com. And they can message me from there. The ebook is available on the website. If they sign up for just to follow me on a regular basis, we'll send them the ebook if they're interested in it. So just go to my website. It's the best way to connect with me.
So good. So good. Well, for everybody watching, maybe this is something that you're like, well, this doesn't really affect me, but I bet you know somebody that you should be sending this to because somebody's always on the job hunt somewhere. And so do me a favor and just copy the link, send it over to them and say, hey, you should watch this. This might be helpful to you. And what we are doing, we started this week with the resume. We're getting our foot in the door. It's the key that Pastor Tina said, getting our foot in the door. Now we're going to take the next step to interviewing. And so next week on the show, we're going to interview Tina and she's going to talk about how to do the best interview possible, how to sell yourself, how to be able to present yourself in such a way that they're going to want to hire you. So you don't want to miss that. As always, do me a favor and rate this podcast if you're listening to it somewhere, helps other people find it. Make sure that you like and subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you next week on Creating the Future.